Just 1 second. Sorry, I seem to be having trouble on my end. Just give me a second while I try and sort it out. Yes, welcome back to In the Red Corner podcast with me, Ross. I hope everyone's well this evening. Tonight, I am very excited. Chris Lights Out Lytle. I've been a long time admirer of him, followed him from back in the days of the UFC and his MMA days. Big shout out to Ike there. Hope you're well. Want to give a quick shout out to the show sponsor, Cloud Competitions. You can follow them on Instagram. Amazing competitions. I think they're giving away a Rolex at the moment as well for as little as £1.99. So make sure you go over there and follow them and check out some of the other competitions that they've got going. Big shout out to Violent Gentlemen as well for supplying us with these polo shirts. Violent Gentlemen doing the business. And thank you to all the new and old subscribers as well. As I said tonight, really excited. Talk about the Marbella card. What, 2 weeks away now, is it? It's getting there. It's getting there. But Chris Lights Out Lytle, everyone. Let's bring him in. Chris Lights Out Lytle, how you doing?
Man, doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on. And by the way, even when I was in the UFC all the time, I was fighting. I had a fight over in Cage Rage over in England. It was a nice time.
Former Cage Rage champion, aren't you?
Yeah,
that's right. I remember. That fits. Like saying there. Hope all's well. I don't know what that means, but appreciate you commenting. The Marbella card, mate. What I've seen today on the Bareknuckle show, Brian Socher had it on the podcast about how it's all going to look and things, and it looks incredible. I've seen like the aerial views of it, and the big dome bull ring. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it.
Oh, you and me both in a bullfighting ring. That I've never been to a bullfight. I've never been to a bullfighting ring. Never been to Spain. I've been to many parts of Europe. I've always wanted to go to Spain. So to go there to have this magnitude of a bare knuckle fight is unreal. So I keep waiting for this time. I try not to look forward to things too much, but it's definitely in the back of my head.
Well, I can't help but look forward to it. I've got the UK guys that friends. I count them as friends. Danny Christie over there. Let's bring the card up. We've got Danny Christie over there fighting Dave Mundell, Rico Franco, Tony Soto, Austin Trout versus Franco Tonali. It's that the Franco Tonali and Tony Soto fight. Franco Tonali brings violence. That's what he's known for, and he's unbelievable. Seen him fight over here a couple of times, obviously, and he's just a bad man. He's got bad intentions.
Yeah, I remember when he fought Lilly and he hit him. I thought he knocked his head off right away. I was like, oh, my God, he's done. I mean, he hit him with a huge right hand, I believe. And I was really impressed with James Lilly's ability to get up and continue the fight. Not only that, he did pretty well after that. I mean, he knocked the head straight back. That really showed me just how tough Lilly was, but also just how heavy-handed Franco is.
Yeah, I mean, James, I think he said himself that your namesake Lights Out. He was on the podcast just a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying he doesn't know how he got up from that himself, but like you said, it just shows his toughness. You said, he came back. I was hoping for a 6th round. I did see the ring girl up at the side with the 6th round card, but Franco got it that night.
Yeah, I mean that was an eye-opening fight to me, because to me James Lilly has always been one of the better fighters you see in the whole organization. He's always very technically very sound. Very good, and just to have him get hit with a big punch like that, very rare. And then he just jumped up and got up at the end. I was like, how did he get up after that? I thought he was done for sure. He got up, and like I said, he was impressive. But that just shows the depth and how good the fighters we have fighting right now for bare knuckle. It's just an amazing sport. A lot of the guys have been fighting over in England longer than they have in the United States, so I think they have a little bit different of a viewpoint and game strategy, and it's just good seeing the different contrasting styles.
Yeah. Do you think there is much of a style difference between the UK guys and the American guys? Because I know bare knuckles, it's the newest, oldest sport in the world, You know, but it's still people are still kind of figuring it all out. You know, you see the different boxers come over, MMA fighters, Thai boxers come over, and you know, everyone's style's kind of different. But do you think there's a big difference between the UK and the US?
I don't know if I'd say there's a big difference, but I can definitely think there is a difference. I feel like a lot of the guys over in Europe, especially in England, I think they're more technically sound. I think they're very, very boxing oriented, with just very precise with their punches, their head movement. I think they're just technically better at that aspect. I think when you have a lot of the guys from the United States, they're more of, I don't know if I would say MMA style, just more of a brawler, more of a bite down the mouthpiece, throw harder punches, not be as technical, be a little bit more brutal, if that makes sense. They just want to come forward, get a hold of you, win at all costs. Like Soto, he's going to kind of do whatever it takes. You know, you can't really put him in any one box. He's just kind of a fighter, and we got a couple guys like that. Now, the exception I would say is Dave Mondell. I don't think he's going to try and go out there and just be an outright brute on you, but he doesn't need to because he's so technically good at what he does.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there as well, you know, the likes of the guys that Danny Christie will admit himself that he's not the most technically gifted fighter, but he's got that inside him to, you know, come forward, bite down at the right time and go hard.
Yeah, that's the one fight we kind of flip-flop things. Most of the guys are different, but I think that fight is definitely when Danny Christie is one of the guys I would think known for just their intensity and their toughness and coming and walking through punches and just saying, whatever, I'm going to hit you harder. You know, kind of the Mike Perry style. Not as, but he's definitely more technical than Mike Perry. But Mike kind of epitomizes what I'm saying about a lot of the U.S. fighters. But I definitely say the Mondell fight is flip-flop from what my statement I just said about the U.S. versus Britain said.
I'd love to see a show U.S. versus Brits. I've talked about it with Lou Fuse for a long time and things, you know, and I'd love to see that show. And, you know, there's a chance of, with what goes on, depends on what goes on in Marbella, that there's going to be 3 world champions in the UK, which you think is unbelievable. You know, we've got Mick Terrell, Rico Franco possibly, and Danny Christie as well, possibly.
Absolutely. Like I said, I had my first bare knuckle fight in England. It was legal there before it was legal in the United States. Obviously, you talked about the history goes back hundreds of years. So it's the oldest sport, but it's also the newest one at the same time. It's a weird dynamic. But even though it is newer, it's newer in the United States than it was in England. You guys were around a little bit longer, so I think there's a little bit more depth.
Yeah. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. I just want it to be tomorrow or something, you know. be over there. Utah, there's some more tryouts going on at Utah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Really excited for that. We have in Utah, Salt Lake City. We haven't been putting on tryouts as much. We were putting them on all the time earlier this year. But I think we started figuring out, man, we have a lot of guys we've signed, or we found some good talent. We need to utilize them now. We haven't done any tryouts lately. I want to find some more talent out in the West. I know we like putting on fights in Salt Lake City. We want to find some good fighters from around there. Anybody around that area, anybody on the East Coast, West Coast, any part of the world, I don't care. Come on out. But, I mean, we're just looking to get some guys, especially from that area. It's easy. All we really do is come, hit the mitts, hit the pads, do really light sparring. I just want to see what kind of fighter we're dealing with. I get a view of seeing your technical skills, but also just a little bit of your flavor from the fighting, from the sparring, just see how you deal with pressure, how you deal with adversity. If you're a dog, if you kind of walk through punches and go after people. These are just little things I like to find out and then try and implement that person where they're going to go the best. If they're going to probably put them on the America Southwest, that's great. If they're going to go on East Coast, Southwest, wherever they're needed, I'm going to try and put them in the fight. Yeah,
fantastic. We've not had any over here for a little while. I think I've only missed one of them so far, but I mean, we found some real good guys. Pick Jardine being one of them, who took out the #1 in the UK, which was Bart Kroll. There's some incredible guys coming through, and the last prospect show, which was also in Newcastle as well, it was probably the best show that I've been to. It really was. It was fantastic. There was Paul Venice versus Tabakov, the Bulgarian. The main event. It was when Danny Christie fought Jimmy Miller as well. So there were some big names on there, but to see the other guys coming through, there's a pathway through onto the big show for them. it's if you want to get involved with bare knuckle, that's the thing to do, and that's the place to go. Go to the tryouts and try and make yourself known. Is personality something that you look for as well in fighters? I know people, you might be able to fight like fuck, but if you haven't really got much about you, is that something that maybe puts you off a fighter? Or
100%. It's a weird era we live in now. I always say I was fortunate. I lived in the era of fighting where it was all about your fights. Now you're in the era of entertainment, so it's not just about the fights. And fighters have to realize this and understand it is you have to be the full package now. You could just fight and not care about anything else in my era, like in the early 2000s. But now social media and everything, people are looking for a little bit more. You have to be somebody people want to see, not just your fighting style. People have to click on your fights no matter what, or even your interviews. I'm always telling fighters when we're doing the tryouts, you have to get good at being interviewed. So every time somebody says, do you want to do this podcast? You have to say, yes. Will you do this interview? Yes. And they'll be like, but look, you weren't, even if you're not good at it, you get better at it. Just like when you were first fighting, you weren't good at it. You had to spar. Every interview you do, every podcast, that's a sparring session. Get good at these things. Understand that you have to get out there, push your brand, because at the end of the day, everybody, a promoter, they want to put a fighter on who everybody wants to see. I mean, I always give Jake Paul as an example. Is he the best boxer in the world? No. But is he making a lot more money than most? Yeah, because people want to see him fight. And that's, at the end of the day, what it all boils down to.
Absolutely. I speak to guys all the time, and there's some fighters that would rather get punched in the face than come and do a podcast, which I find it strange.
I know, but that's what I keep telling them. Like, you have to work on everything nowadays. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I realized that early, and you couldn't get me away from something like that. People wanted me to do. I was always saying yes because I want to get good at that. I understand how important it was. But this has gotten more and more important than it was even in my era. So I keep trying to encourage these guys. Look, you have to get good at a lot of different aspects. It's not just about the fight anymore. It's about several aspects. Work on all of them.
Yeah, the social media side of things, as you alluded to there, it's huge because growing your social media essentially helps you sell tickets to the shows and things like that, doesn't it?
100%. I mean, the more people who know who you are, and I mean, you don't even have to put. I've seen fighters and they'll just put funny clips of things that have nothing to do with fighting, and they'll just be putting that on their Instagram all day, and they'll have a bunch of followers because they just like how funny, the things that they put on. But that can translate into money. They go, oh, I like fighting too. I'll come watch this guy if he's here. He put on hilarious things on Instagram. That could be just that. You don't have to make it all about you or what you're doing, but you have to find some angle to make people care about what you're doing. That's what it's all about, making people care that you're fighting.
Absolutely. Conatine is probably one of the best in the UK at doing that. He's so funny. He's funny on social media. And again, one of the best characters, one of the best personalities around as well. He's kind of got it all. And I'm very happy for him to win the UK belt over Johnny Graham not so long ago.
Yeah, that was a really entertaining fight. I don't think people gave Johnny Graham as much credit for how good he was. He looked fantastic when he fought. That was a very close, contested fight. Both guys getting knockdowns. My favorite thing is when people get up off the canvas to win. That's what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny is, I knew it was going to be a technical fight in the sense of how good of boxers that they both are. Head movement, footwork, both making each other miss. And like you say, both getting knocked down and getting back to the feet. The crowd going wild, and I think the crowd helps them get back to the feet a lot of the time.
Well, like you said, that's the name of this game: is hit and don't get hit. And those guys, the thing that impressed me about that fight was the head movement. Both guys very difficult to hit, and that's what you always got to focus on. But at the same time, you have to step forward and hit the other guy. And obviously, they both got knocked down. They both did a great job of putting on a fun fight, and they just stood and traded a few times. It was amazing.
Yeah. Outside of the guys that are fighting on the Marbella card, is there any other UK guys that are kind of catching your eye at the moment?
Man, there's just so many, talented fighters out there. I think most of them I'm thinking of are actually on the card though. Like I said, one guy I always like watching is James Lilly, and I know he's on the card there. So it's just whatever that we put on the card there. I just kind of watch and try and see the most talented guys, and the most talented to me is the most entertaining guys and the guys who just come to fight, win, lose, or draw. I don't care if you win every fight. I really don't, man. I want people who are in every fight, put on the line, and just throw down. Those are my favorite kind of fighters.
Yeah, that's like you've just kind of Gary Fox springs to mind when you say that. He's the kind of guy that just comes to fight. He just wants it. He'll quite happily stand in the bang, but a former professional boxer. He's got great skills as well that comes with it. Hard as nails.
You can tell his heavy boxing influence. He's a very good boxer. A little head movement, little combinations right afterwards. But I mean, he'll sit there and take one. He'll be bleeding from both eyes and not care, and just keep coming. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Those guys, I put them on every card if I can. If I were in charge, man, I don't really do the matchmaking. I can make some recommendations, but they don't necessarily listen to me. But yeah.
I think a lot of the UK guys would love to get over to, America as well. Obviously, we've had a few, James Lilly and Connor, Big Mick. I'm hoping to see in the future, more of a pathway through for the UK guys to get over there, because they really want it. They see it as, it's a massive, massive thing for them to get over to America and fight. Yeah,
well, I mean, I think not only there, but I think we're going to have a lot more things starting to open up in Europe and just all over the place. I think coming to Spain is a big first step. Let's see what happens with that. I think there's going to be a lot of other places that, man, this is entertaining. People love this. We're selling out right away. So I think there's going to be a lot of places that open up. But anybody we can get over to our bigger markets. Every time we put on a fight in Miami, it's massive. We sell out. People love it down there. So we gotta get more global. We got to get more people on all these cards. You have a guy ranked, third over in England, bring him over to fight the guy ranked second over in Florida or over in Utah or wherever, put on a fight. That's where we're heading right now, and I really want that to continue.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the BKFC at the moment, of where it is. It's still expanding into different territories, different countries, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger. This is, obviously the Marbella card's going to be the biggest card so far, but I don't think it will be the biggest card ever, because we've got Italy and Portugal and all these other countries, like you say, other parts of Europe. Look at the Cubans coming through now. There's some unbelievable fighters coming through from Cuba.
Man, they're a problem. I'm not sure what we're going to do with some of those guys, who you put them in with, because they're so untouchable at this point, can't even go past a round. But we're going to find somebody who's going to go, and they're going to figure them out. And nobody's unstoppable. Eventually, things will go a different direction. But this reminds me a lot of, early days in UFC. I was fortunate to fight there for the first time in 2000. Started fighting again in 2003, and just the growth and the way we're moving and getting bigger. This is what it reminds me of. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be involved with this sport. Like how often you get to be doing a sport when it starts twice in your life? Never. So I was fortunate. I saw that. I wanted to be involved because I understood how entertaining, how exciting. It takes away all the boring stuff about fighting that I hated, and it puts it all into one fight. And I was like, oh, I love this sport. I want to be part of this. And I feel like people who aren't really understanding this yet, you're at the start of a sport that's really going to take off, and it hasn't happened yet.
Definitely. Comparing it to the UFC, I suppose, but these guys now are the kind of, guys like yourself and Chuck Liddell. Oh God, what's he called? His name's gone out my head. Tito Ortiz. The guys like those, like future Hall of Famers, the guys that are putting it all out there now for the BKFC.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys right now you're going to see later on, and they'll be. I feel bad for them. They might be a little bit too far ahead of their time. Like Palomino, he might be there just like one of the best fighters of all time, and he's not going to be there when we get the big TV deal, maybe, or something. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a lot of guys like that in the UFC. Guys, the Dan Severins are just, the Mark Colemans, and who are still known from other people, but a lot of the younger people were like, who are they? I've never heard them before. And you're like, what? You've never heard of these guys? Yeah. There'll be people like that with BKFC, because it just takes time to make this sport get to where I think it's going to. Hopefully the guys who helped build us to get us there are still around and still involved when we get there.
I certainly hope so. And, for the likes of yourself who came out of fighting and things, is it, to be involved with it, like you've just said there, it's still something special, to be involved in something, like you say, two sports that are kind of, at the start is unheard of.
That's such a rarity that you ever get involved with a sport that started. And I started fighting in like very early 1998. I mean, the sport was about 4.5 years old of MMA. It wasn't even MMA. It was called NHB back then. Nobody knew what MMA was. It was like no holds barred. It was just fighting. You know, it was cage fighting. It was UFC fighting, what people called it. People thought you were a lunatic for doing it. And just to be there early when it went from underground to mainstream was wild. You know, it was a wild experience. And, I felt like that was a great era in my life, but it was over. And then I started doing this. I go, man, has a lot of similar feelings, very similar in many ways. And now I'm starting to realize I feel like I'm on the verge of being in the exact same position twice.
Absolutely. And I think what helped as well, and I think what will help, Feldman's talking about doing the docu-series or the mini-series of, and getting to know fighters and things like that. For fighters, it's quite hard. I always say I'm just a tit with a podcast. That's all I am, But the fact that I can get people on to come and speak and have a say and get the voice out there, get the face out there, it's great. So
well, I appreciate what you're doing because, like, if people saw from the UFC, it didn't really blow up until you got to understand the fighters. You got to look behind the curtain and see who they really were. Early, like I said, when the UFC was going, it was still entertaining, still great fights, but it wasn't until they really got the Ultimate Fighter people started seeing how hard these guys worked and their backstories and how these guys who had like kids and they're just trying to live their dream and they're doing. I mean, people don't realize how hard the life of a fighter is. I remember once we had a fight and Shaquille O'Neal was there and he came and did one of the fights with us. He commentated one fight and he was talking about how these are the hardest working guys in sports, and I was like, oh, wow, he gets it because he's been around them before. He understands. I mean, I think fighters might work harder than any other athlete that I know of. I mean, maybe some weird cyclist. I don't know. But I mean, like in the fight world, it's kind of all encompassing of your whole life.
Yeah, although it's a lonely sport. There's only you in the ring, but it's not just you that your family goes through the camp as well. Your family goes through all the mood swings and the being hungry and all that kind of stuff. It's not just as like I say, there's only you in the ring, but it affects a lot of people around you, doesn't it?
Oh man, like I said, I have a wife and 4 kids, and that's a difficult balance. I don't know how many people do it. I was fortunate to have people who supported me, but if you don't have a support system there, it's not going to work. Like if your wife's always complaining or your parents, well, I mean, I don't know how you're going to make this work as a fighter. So it's definitely a lonely path sometimes. But yeah, to make it successful, you better have a good support team. Not only your family, but I mean your coaches. You have a group of people behind you making this product to get in the ring after an 8-week camp. There's a lot of people involved.
Yeah, definitely. And coming up as well, not long after Marbella, we've got BKFC Newcastle on the 2nd of November. I talk about the American guys going over to the UK guys coming over to America. I'd love to see more of the American guys coming over to the UK as well. And we've had a few. Caleb Harris.
Yeah. What's interesting though is, I mean, I'm just like with the UFC, that thing has become so global now. There's so many people from all over the world. It's difficult. I think we're getting to be the same thing with BKFC. Whenever we put on fights in England or Bulgaria, there's so much talent and so many people are wanting to fight for it. There's not many open spaces now. So we might get a guy or two from America, but man, when you have so many talented fighters, in close to that region, you always want to put the closer guys on the home there. It just makes sense they want to be closer to home too. So it's getting tougher to find a spot for people to fight because we have so much talent that is begging to fight for BKFC.
Yeah. Very true in what you say there, absolutely. What about yourself, though? I mean, doing the commentary and things, are we going to see you coming over eventually, or are you going to be doing it from the...
And I mean, I was fortunate. I will be in Spain. Very excited. I'm hopeful I will be in Newcastle. I'm not real sure at this point, but I don't even know. Have they announced who's on that card yet? I don't think so, but I'm hoping maybe a certain heavyweight champ might be on it. If so, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm in Newcastle, which I've never been there before, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's not a bad place. If you like it, if you like the rain and the cold weather, it's not a bad place.
Not really. But I like England. I mean, I've been fortunate. I've been to England for we had a fight there. I fought there a couple of times. I actually fought in Birmingham once. Fought in London a few times. So no, I've always enjoyed myself there. Fought over in Ireland once with the UFC. So anytime I get to head over in that direction, I'm always excited.
Now that show, when it happens, and it will happen at some point, I've not heard anything, but BKFC Ireland, that is going to be bonkers, isn't it? It's going to be off the chain, that one. It's obviously McGregor's brought over so many eyes, and and as Dave said, he moves the needle, and people answer the phone to him and things like that. With everything that's going on with the Spain show, to see that in an outside venue, Croke Park or something along those lines, rugby stadium, it'd be unbelievable. And I'm sure McGregor would be wanting Dave to sort that as well.
Well, my goal is for Conor to fight in the squared circle, fight for BKFC, and if so, they'd have to find the biggest place in Ireland, because I don't know if they can hold him, because I think the country would shut down to watch him fight Bareknuckle.
I know he said he wants to, and he's got 2 fights left on his UFC contract, and after that, he says he wants a piece of it. For Conor, I think Bareknuckle would probably suit him even more, because there's no takedowns, there's no kicks to worry about. He's a fantastic boxer. Look what he done with Mayweather,
And the beauty of that for him is, I don't care what anybody says, MMA wears you down. That training camp is extremely exhausting. And a lot of that, people don't realize, is that wrestling, that jiu-jitsu, that grappling, that takedown, all that stuff is extremely taxing on the body. When you take that out and you have to worry about anything with 2 hands, training camp is a lot easier. You feel so much better. You feel refreshed, like, oh my God, I can do this. I can do this easy. I had 3 fights in my mid-40s, and I could have never did an MMA fight. But boxing, with no gloves, I was able to get through that camp a lot easier. And I think Conor, if he does one, he's gonna be like, I don't want to do more MMA. Why go through that when I can just do what I want to do and punch people in the face? It's so much funner.
Yeah, it's just finding that opponent, though, isn't it? Who can match the magnitude? No one can match the magnitude of Conor McGregor for what he is and what he's done.
I got some people in mind. I'm not going to tell you, though. I got some people.
Yeah, you tell me on the Friday when I come and meet you in Marbella.
Sounds like a plan.
Mate, it's the card. It just, no, the BKFC moving into something a little different. They're going to be having all the greenback record guys. They're going to be doing the show after the fighting. So it's going to be some spectacle. It's not just going to be a fight show. It's going to be a music show as well at the end of the fighting show. First of all, it's going to be a fight show.
It's going to be an event. It's going to be an event that you want to be at. You're always going to remember, like, that was, like I said, it's not just a fight, which it is, but man, it's going to be an event you're always going to remember. It's not like it's a spectacle. It's going to be a huge event that everybody's going to remember and say, man, that was one of the biggest things I've ever been involved with. That's kind of the goal, is to make people believe that, going, I don't care where the next one is. I don't care when it is. I'm going. That's the game plan. And I want all of Europe to be begging for us to come. I want them to be like, man, that was such an amazing event. We got to be part of the next one. That's what I think we're looking at.
It's so exciting to think where the BKFC will be in 10 years' time or something like that.
I keep telling the fighters, like, we'll all be hanging out after a fight in kind of in like the same area. And I'm like, you guys enjoy this right now, because in 10 years it won't be like this. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is how the UFC would be. We'd all hang out at the hotel, maybe go in somebody's room, have a couple of drinks. It's not like that anymore. People go to their own after fight party at like some big club in Vegas. Like, it'll be the same thing here. It's just not here yet. And you'll look back at these times and you'll think how cool they were, because they're not here anymore. And I'm appreciating these points right now, because, like I said, I've seen it go away, and it'll go away here at some point. I don't want it to, but that's life. It's inevitable. Enjoy this fun part right now, this before we blow up, because it's looking back, it's always a little bit funner, but it is what it is.
Do you think there's time, the respect between fighters as well? And I always say it, that bond, that one moment in time that only the fighters will ever kind of understand. The respect that comes with Bareknuckle. It's different to boxing and MMA, Thai boxing. I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it, but the respect level that's there. Do you think that'll go eventually as well, as it gets bigger and bigger?
I don't know if that fight. I mean, that respect's going to be hard to leave, because no matter what, I mean, only thing that will change, maybe if there's a little bit of different money on the line. I don't know, but it's no matter what, it's hard to. It's the closest thing to having a real fight as you can have. So you get in there and you go to war with somebody and you trade punches and you get knocked down, you get back up, and they get knocked down. I mean, there has to be a level of respect there. I mean, I'm not sure how you get through that and not shake it afterwards. We've had many fighters who I've watched, so I'm like, this isn't going to settle it. Whatever happens, these guys are going to be ready to fight afterwards. And they weren't. They were cool afterwards. So I'm like, man, there's just something about going through that fight, a bare knuckle fight, and I think whatever problems you have with that person are over afterwards.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. I love the respect level that's between the fighters and things. Like you say, everyone back at the hotel having drinks at the bar with eyes bust and noses all over the face. It's a beautiful thing to see, isn't it? And guys just standing, and like you say, that they've got that bond that'll that they'll take together forever with them, and but they're standing there having a pint. It's brilliant.
Kind of weird, but not really. I mean, you think it if you haven't had these fights, but then once you have them, like, okay, yeah, this is a person who I really have a lot in common with, and I just know how tough they are. And to be honest, I'd be a fan of that person if I didn't just fight them. So why not? I mean, there's a lot of bonds that are formed when you fight somebody, and you always remember part of that in your head the rest of your life.
Yeah, definitely. I'll quickly go back to what we're saying about the tryouts and things. How important is homegrown talent to the BKFC?
Oh, man. I mean, that is the goal, to be honest with you. That is the ultimate goal. We don't want to take people from boxing or people from MMA, a former UFC fighter. We want people coming up and be like, no, this is a bare knuckle fighter. I've had guys in the tryouts who I'm like, well, what's your background? They're like, I'm bare knuckle. I'm like, oh, okay, this is exactly what I want. I mean, I want somebody who's going to come in. Their first thing is going to be at the tryouts. They're going to go pro with us, and they're going to become just a standout fighter based on that. So, people like seeing that. I don't want to be somebody else's where they come. I want to be where they start, and just people recognize how amazing these fighters are and their talent level. And that's why I think people want to see. They want to see some homegrown talent. We want to see homegrown talent. It's weird. Like when you are a coach and you have fighters come in, if you actually was the one who developed them, there's a different bond. There's a different feeling, a different level of pride. If they come to your gym, they were already an established fighter, yeah, you'll coach them, you might have a very good relationship with them, but it's just a little different when you were the first one who coached them, you're the first one who taught them. There's a special bond there, and that's really what you're always looking for as a coach. It's the same thing as an organization. We're looking for people who we can bring in, we can, develop, we can make them a superstar, and we can just kind of help nurture that. That's kind of my goal as a guy who run these tryouts. I want to find homegrown talent. I just want to find hungry guys. I want to change lives. I'm always telling guys when we're doing tryouts, I'm like, hey, man, I can't do this for you. I can give you opportunity. That's all I can promise, and if you do whatever we're asking, we give you this opportunity, that's up to you. That's all I can offer you. But if I will do that if you show me that that's what you want, if that's in your heart, if that's your biggest desire, I'm going to try and make that happen. And I love it when it happens and it works out. And I'm getting a lot of good guys from the tryouts. And it's just an amazing process.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Soto, he was found at the tryouts, wasn't he? And now look at him fighting for a world championship. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Lorenzo Hunt, that guy was not a good MMA fighter. I think he had 8 MMA fights, like 3 and 5, and found the tryouts and just turned it around and absolutely killed it. So yeah, we're getting a lot of good fighters from the tryouts. It's a lot of fun. We had some of our guys from Canada found the tryouts, and they're doing really well. We're getting some good knockouts, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah. How is bare knuckle on the smaller scene over in the UK? It's blown up. I'm part of a promotion, the WBKB. We just had an event, 12 fights overall. Guys that have never fought before. We've got 2 female fighters. I think that the BKFC have signed up as well now, which we're really happy. We had Andrew Bakewell there, and Danny Christie was refereeing. A couple of other guys from the BKFC as well. But there's all these little shows kind of popping up all over the UK now, and there's probably a good maybe 6 to 8 that are doing quite well. How is it on the smaller scene in America?
It's a little difficult right now, where we're still trying to work on getting a lot of states to regulate this sport. a lot of people aren't really interested. They just like don't know. Bare knuckle, what are you talking about? So we're trying to educate them. We're trying to get the state commissions to say, yes, this is no more dangerous than any other combative sports. You know, we have a lot of documentation showing how in many ways it's safer. I don't know how you can really say safer or more dangerous when you're talking about a combative sport. They're all at some level dangerous, but I mean, this is not any more dangerous than anything else. I've argued it's way better for your brain. Only reason I came out of retirement after being retired for 7 years to fight was because I understood that I'm not going to take as many punches, and I might get cut more, but I'm not going to have brain damage as much, and that's all I cared about. So just educating our commissions that is the case, and trying to make sure they do this in a smart and safe way where we're having new guys. And so, you know, you don't want them to take too much damage, and we're just trying to develop it the proper way. Something we do on a lot of our cards right now in certain states is we're having guys who've never done any fights at all. We're like, okay, you're considered an amateur, but we're not going to have amateurs go out there and fight bare knuckle. They were like the 7-ounce MMA gloves with the bare knuckle rules, and it's not televised, and it's not a real fight. It's an amateur fight, and so now you learn the style, you learn how to fight this way, and then you know have a couple of fights like that, and then you can turn professional. So we're trying to bring them along the right way so they understand the sport. I don't care who you are, boxer or MMA, your first bare knuckle fight, the rules, it's just different, and it takes a minute to get adjusted. So we're trying to get these guys adjusted before they develop any bad habits.
Yeah. Another sport that's kind of blowing up over here as well is hybrid boxing, which is just it's boxing but with 4-ounce gloves.
Ooh.
So it's, you know, that's what is kind of been seen as amateur bare knuckle over here, because it's just the 4-ounce gloves, the MMA mitts.
Very similar.
Yeah. But it's
the only difference with what we're doing is complete BKFC rules. It's boxing, but you can use the clinch. You can get inside. It's 100% BKFC rules, but with the small gloves.
Yeah, mate, it's just getting bigger and bigger, and I love. It's just watching it snowball down this hill. It's just, you know, it's never going to stop, is it? It's a juggernaut just moving forward.
I mean, to me, like I said, don't get me wrong. I do love MMA, and I love boxing too. I had 15 pro boxing matches and a lot of MMA fights. But once I saw this sport, and I started competing in it, I was very upset that it wasn't around when I was younger. Like I said, I had my first fight until I was 43. If it had been around earlier, I'd had probably 10 more fights if it had been around 5 years before that. So I just see it as taking away all the stuff I don't like about fighting and putting it into one fight. You got rid of all the stuff I don't like. What is this? This is all about heart, determination, will, skill. It takes all that. You have to be highly skilled, more skilled than in boxing, in my opinion, because you can't get hit, and more skilled because you have to land punches in the right way. You can't just wing punches. And you're going to see who's the toughest dog, who's going to come out to fight, who's going to get up off the canvas to win. And there's no boringness. There's not, I'm going to take this round off. I'm going to try and stay away. I'm just going to try and out-jab you this round. You're going to fight from the beginning of the fight to the end, and you're not going to get boring fights. It's going to be amazing. And that's what I like about it, because I think that's what the majority of fight fans want to see. How many times have I seen people when a UFC fight's going on and it's a good banger fight and it goes to the ground, and they're disappointed. I'm going to go grab a beer right now. When that happens, they'll go to the rest. I'm like, you can't do that in a bare knuckle fight, because it's always on point where somebody might get knocked out the next second. And you know that. So you're constantly on the edge of your seat. And that's what I think is great. And that's why I think the sport's going to take over, because a lot of people don't like when people are going on the ground because they're too good and nobody's getting submitted. It's just a stalling tactic. I'm going to beat you in this decision. There's not a lot of that here. Not a lot of people try and go to the decision. I'm going to knock your head off, or you're going to knock my head off. That's what people want to see.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. In the circular ring, it's built for action. There's no corners to get into. There's no corners to get out of. It's just built for action. It doesn't stop. And there's no better way to see it than watching it live. You know, you can watch it on the TV, watch it on the big screen, whatever. But when you're there and you feel the electric from the crowd, you can hear the punches. There's no better way to see it live. So go and get your Marbella tickets. I'll put the link in the description box after this. Get yourself over there, because it's going to be unbelievable. Couldn't
agree more. I always tell people there's certain sports that are just better live. I don't know if you've ever been to a hockey game. Much better live. I don't watch them on TV. I would imagine soccer, especially over in England, man. I mean, those places seem like they get rowdy. The whole soccer hooligans, I bet that's a much better thing to be at live. Bare knuckle's another one. It's much better to be too live. Like you said, you hear that fist hit the skull, you hear that smack, you feel the energy. It's unbelievable.
It is. Chris, thank you so much for coming on in the Red Corner podcast. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you out there in 18 days' time. I think Rick said earlier in the comments, 18 days until Spain. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, and you're more than welcome in the Red Corner anytime. Thank you very much.
In the Red Corner, baby. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, my man. Speak to you soon.
All right, see you.
Chris Lights Out Lytle, ladies and gentlemen. An honour and a privilege to have that man on. Followed him for years, like I say, and such a nice guy. 18 days, that's all. I can't wait. Thank you all that jumped in the comments there. Jab that like button, jab the subscribe button, and I'll speak to you all soon. Is that my hair just a little bit all over the place? Yeah, don't worry about it, Ross, be fine. Yeah, speak to you all soon.